Guys, good morning. It's 7:40. Again, congrats, Jason J. And let's head right into the KUM News link Zoom room where we have Dev Suzuki standing by. Dev is with the Guam Cannabis Association, guys. And just to give you guys a status update, the Guam Cannabis Adult Use Rules and Regulations are now over at the Guam the Legislatura, where they have 90 days to pass or fail those. And I believe they're also going to have a public hearing. They could have a public hearing on them. So that's what's going on with the rules and regs. But things keep moving forward in the cannabis community, and the Guam Cannabis Association is having an event tomorrow. And so Dev is going to tell us a little bit more about the Guam Cannabis Association and that event. Good morning, Dev. Thanks for joining us, my friend.
Morning, morning. Thank you so much for having me on the show today, and thank you, Guam, for listening. Yeah.
Right on. Let's just start with who is the Guam Cannabis Association?
So the Guam Cannabis Association was kind of just a little bit of a brainchild I kind of mustered up as working in the States. I saw the Long Beach Cannabis Association work well, and I was a part of that. So when I got home, I saw all these people grinding. I saw a lot of different entities, even people I didn't know. So I just reached out to them, asked me if they would meet a couple of times, bring some friends, people they knew. And it was just a really mixed bag, like a true melting pot. And then we started devising plans, and I kind of suggested, and we all suggested, had good ideas to move this forward. And that kind of built us to our three pillars. So the Guam Cannabis Association, we're trying to focus on education, advocacy, and philanthropy. We feel like that's pretty important to not just normalizing, but stuff like doing beach cleanups for advocacy. We're going to be offering like courses for individuals here on Guam that are interested in getting into the cannabis industry, but possibly don't want to go like online, or maybe don't want to go to the States to get that experience. I used to work in the States, so I'm more than happy to like train people. I think it'd just be more fair that we do that behind like a collective Guam Cannabis Association. And then we can, open those gates up for everyone, you know what I mean? And then that last philanthropy is going to be events like this Saturday, so kind of an opportunity to put our culture first, since it'll be at the Cultural Center. And then our veterans as well, since all the donations will go to Got Your 671 veterans and Sagan Kuntur and Chamorro.
So this is happening tomorrow, guys. It's at SKC Sagan Kuntur tomorrow at 8 p.m., right? And the name of the event is Let's Be Buds. Haha, get it? Pun totally intended. Building community through safe cannabis. It's a Q&A session with Senator Clint Rogel and also Cannabis Control Board member Will Parkinson, Dev. I wanted to ask, though, because I know that you've talked about certifications, right? So when adult use cannabis rules and regs are finally up and running, and we get into like these dispensaries and stuff, you had a cool job, and you're actually a certified bud tender.
Yeah, that would be one of the certificates that I would say in an active cannabis industry out in the States. You often are probably working in a couple different industries. So we kind of have a couple different certificates that we could, offer people here.
What does a bud tender do, though, man? Give me like a day on the job of a bud tender.
Yeah, no, being a bud tender was definitely one of my favorite jobs on the planet. You come in, you're putting all the display weed out, and sometimes that's just by smell or correlation to like what the terpene, profile for the smell, and then, what the physical appearance looks like for, where it goes out. You're going to have to understand every product that's inside the dispensary, down to like how those test results are made, down to like, what the different terpenes do, and then also interacting with the different diverse people that are going to come into a dispensary, and then making sure that not just customer service is number one, but also medical necessity, because that's where we're not really like medical practitioners, but at least being a bud tender, you're going to be able to have the fun of testing the product and definitely firsthand understanding, and that's where the consumption of it, not to say necessarily on the job per se, but That was definitely all the samples we were taking home, and man, I'm gonna do some R&D on this one tonight. But you got to know, sometimes one of the more serious things being a bud tender,
So you
people
mean you
call
take
on the
your work?
phone.
You mean you were taking your work home with you?
Oh yeah, yeah. They say don't take your work home, but I say you don't like your job enough if you're not.
Oh man.
So
So those are
pretty
so
fun job.
yeah, Dev. So basically, because of your certification level, you're able to do courses out here and then get people certified for
That's
these
correct.
different like cannabis industry jobs, right?
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah, I was fortunate enough from a dispensary called The Circle over in Long Beach, and they've been very successful. But they hired me as one of the first team members, and part of our small team's job was to then train a lot of the next individuals that were coming into The Circle and then what would then be the corner over in Long Beach. So for me, it was just a day in the job to also like drive to other dispensaries representing Santa Cruz Veterans Alliance. That was and like I said, you kind of want to work in two different fields in cannabis. So the circle was where I did the retail, and then the Santa Cruz Veterans Alliance, for me, that was the veteran aspect. They were all vets, so I got to grow with some veterans in Northern California, and that was driving to all these different dispensaries in the state of California and just educating them on what this product is. So trying to get not just people to be bud tenders, man, but also be like a consultant would be the next one up. And that's where the consultant, dude, that guy's hitting multiple dispensaries in a day, bud tenders stuck in one shop. And then on top of consultant, then you start getting that sales and territory manager where they're making those 500 jar sales, and then part of the training is teaching people how to get there.
well, so there's levels to this, in other words, and this is again one of the things
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
one of the things that was discussed when this whole measure was being debated and passed was that there was that economic argument in favor of it, saying that yeah, it's going to bring jobs, it's going to bring money to the island. So that's where you
Absolutely.
right. Yeah. Dev, you do have some veterans in your group, right? The Guam Cannabis Association.
We do, yes. I myself am a veteran as well. I'm an Army vet. I deployed with the National Guard here in 2013. My time in the Army actually introduced me to the biggest plants I'd ever seen in my life in Afghanistan. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to take this for R&D. I'm going to take my work home. But it was one of those situations where being a veteran and having PTSD made me connect with these other veterans.
Wow.
And I think you met with one of them as well, too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dev. So let's get a little back on the event. It's happening tomorrow, 8 p.m. at SKC Sagan Cultura. Tomorrow's at the EPAL Point facility. The people, what should they bring? What are just like the ground rules, man?
So we're gonna have the center itself, kind of that, if people are more familiar, we're gonna close off the center so not that many cars can be coming up to where the buildings are. There's gonna be parking like down on the way. And then if, people are consuming, I did like want to go out there and say to maybe try to arrange a ride or also maybe a taxi service or something to be a little safer.
Yeah.
But we're definitely asking that, people just be respectful. We're going to have some volunteer staff, but it'll be pretty gated off. And we ask that people do bring their ID at that, vaccination card at that if they can, but ID mandatory.
Right on, Dev. Well, thanks for your time, man. And as things start to ramp up, let's catch up and break some bud together, my friend.
Thank you so much for having us on the show, man. Thank you. Thank you.
Got it. Dev Suzuki is with the Guam Cannabis Association, guys, normalizing cannabis use. They talk about philanthropy. They want to do things out in the community, raise awareness, right? And offer services through certification and all that kind of stuff. There are a bunch of jobs that, hopefully will come with this cannabis industry when it gets stood up, which can't happen until after the rules and regs. There's still a lot of things that got to happen. They got to legislature's got to do their thing with the rules and regs. And there's also got to be a laboratory that's stood up for all of this cannabis that's being grown on Guam to be tested. Right. right. 7:49. We actually just got a note from our buddy Jason Solis. Looks like we're getting the band back together. As we got a Serena Solis Mantonani coming up with our 8 o'clock news cast brought to you by Pacific Points. And Jason is actually over at St. John's.